What is up, my friends? Welcome to Flippin' Bats. It is John Smoltz Day here on the show, and this is a big one because there's a lot of big things happening around Major League Baseball. One, Juan Soto's returning to the Bronx. He said it's going to be 50,000 against one. Everyone's going to be booing him, and I tend to agree with that. We'll talk to John Smoltz about that. Aaron Nola is absolutely struggling unlike we've ever seen before. How does that happen? What is going on from one year to the next where he can struggle this much? Another thing with my brother, Justin, he doesn't have a win yet this year. 5 straight consecutive starts where he's been really good. I want to ask John, at what point does it get genuinely frustrating? Not just you give the PC answer to the media of where everybody's trying their hardest. At what point as a pitcher does it get to the point where it pisses you off? And we're going to talk about that, and he's going to talk about Greg Maddux and what he taught him with that situation. And the big news around Major League Baseball this week, Pete Rose has been removed from the permanently ineligible list. I'm going to ask John Smoltz about it, if he thinks he should get in, and then I have a lot to say about this after the interview with John Smoltz as well. I'm going to talk all about it. I have some thoughts that I think many of you will probably disagree with, but it's a really important conversation to have. It's a really pertinent one to have. Does he get in the Hall of Fame or not? We will see. But I have some strong opinions on the matter. We'll see if John does as well, but going to ask him about that, and then stay tuned after for my thoughts on it. But enjoy this. The Hall of Famer John Smoltz is with us every single week, and right now he's back. So without further ado, here he is, John Smoltz. All right, I am pumped to welcome back, as we do every single week here on Flippin' Bats, the Hall of Famer John Smoltz. John, how are we doing this week?
Doing great. Another good week and a game coming up here, Boston and Atlanta.
Oh, love that. Braves are playing better, over 500. We knew that would happen, but here they are. Now Ronald's coming back. He's close. Spencer Strider's about to come back off the IL, so the Atlanta Braves are rolling. John, I want to ask you a couple questions about some different pitchers, but more so just like how certain things happen. Aaron Nola is sitting here at 1-7 with an ERA close to 7, 8. It's close to 10. He's not doing well. And over the last few years, he's been more of a staple of consistency in the mid threes, around 4. You know what you're getting. He's going to start every day. And I just wonder how we're here with him being 1-7. And on the contrast, you have a guy like Patrick Corbin, who's had an ERA of 6 for 4 straight years, who's now seemingly a good pitcher, 3.35 ERA. My question to you is less about them and more so how does this happen? How does something like what Aaron Nola is going through happen? Is it more mechanical? Is it more mental? What are we seeing from a guy like Aaron Nola to make him just not good at all this year?
Well, I think biggest thing I always worried about when I was a pitcher is if trends start getting out around the league in certain teams, like if you're facing 2 different teams and then you get 3 different teams and they're all approaching you the same way, sometimes philosophically, you might have to change your approach. He's a breaking ball, off speed, really good command pitcher. And for one reason or another has gotten off to a rough start. And then who knows the pressing factor. I still believe a guy like Nola, who has got a history and a record of being able to figure it out, will turn it around. But I think maybe teams are looking for certain things. There's so much analytics and so much information. Sometimes you got to trip them up and change your approach and change your pitch selection. Yeah. On the flip side with like Corbin, sometimes you do drastic things and change your pitching because I'm a big believer you are what you are and your strengths are your strengths, but you have to look at it and make adjustments. Pitchers adjust to hitters when 3 teams in a row start showing you things. Yeah. I look at losing a game or having a bad game as a fluke. 2 in a row, okay, maybe I got one eye out looking for things. 3 in a row, now I got to make some wholesale changes just because of what I'm looking and the information they give me back.
Do you ever think it's as simple for Patrick Corbin? He was with one organization for a while, just not any success, goes to a new team and starts having some success. Do you think it's maybe some mechanical changes or maybe just a change of scenery? Is that ever enough to just change things around for you?
I do think so. I think different set of eyes sometimes. Look, confidence on a much better team. Yeah. You struggle to get run support. Next thing you know, you're pressing as a pitcher to pitch perfect. The one thing I can give Patrick, since his injury, I believe he's been pretty dependable on getting out there on the mound, and that's got to be something valued over time. Now, you can't give up 5 runs every time you get out on the mound, even though you're healthy. I think making those adjustments, new ballpark, new team, Mike Maddox, all those things can contribute to the ability to turn around something that has been stuck. You're stuck in neutral or you're stuck in reverse and things don't seem to turn. And then all of a sudden on one different team, you get the different results.
I want to ask if you've ever been through anything like what Justin is going through currently and how you handle. Justin's pitched extremely well for the Giants over his last 5 starts and is still winless. And you watch these games, it's honestly crazy. They'll score 1 run over 8 innings and then score 10 in one extra inning or score 10 the next day. He doesn't have a win. There's been no run support. At what point, as a starting pitcher, does it get genuinely frustrating? And I'm not just talking about like the PC answer you would give to the media. I'm talking about you and your career. And if you ever went through this, like at what point does it get so frustrating and you're just pissed that the team can't score?
I don't know many pitchers who are immune from this, but when it gets an exaggerated level, you can't help but get frustrated.
Yeah.
I've gone through many of these stretches. I think there was a 5-game stretch where the team scored 1 total run. Now, you're not going to win a game in that 5-game stretch. And I remember talking in front of the media saying everybody's trying. They're trying maybe too hard. It's an obvious scenario that gets surrounded. Guys are like, change your undershirt, take the guys out to, everyone starts talking about how does this happen every 5 days? And it gets into a funk where you're just like, man, maybe a rain out. Get me out of this slot. You'll try anything. But I think the biggest thing I learned is you better be ready when the team scores.
Mm-hmm.
Because you go through a stretch, you pitch great, you get no wins, you rack up some losses, and then the team gets 7 for you and you give up 8. That's why you can't let your brain get so focused on something you can't control. I know that's easier said than done. You got to go through it. I still marvel at half the postseason games that we were involved in that we didn't get a single run. We score 1 run, we win. Those kind of things get nauseating, but you can only control what you can control. And look, I said people thought I was crazy after my Cy Young year. I had a better year the next year after my Cy Young, and I won 9 fewer games, right? Chris Sale's going through it right now with the Braves. He had an unbelievable year last year. They're not scoring him any runs. And you start facing guys like that, and you face a Verlander, and you go, look, I can't give up any runs. You pitch better against guys like that. So it definitely is nauseating. You try to figure out what you can do. I, at one point, stepped so firmly on this chalk line, the foul line. I took my cleats and just swiped it, saying, the heck with that, huh? You're not supposed to step on that. I'm stepping on it. And it still didn't change it around, but it happens. And it's frustrating.
I told Justin about 2 starts ago he needed to sacrifice a chicken. Then last time he goes out there, he's wearing long sleeves. He never wears long sleeves. John, it was 5 starts ago. I'm good friends with Willie Adames. We played together in the Tigers organization. And when I went to Anaheim to watch Justin pitch, I talked to Willie after the game, and he's like, man, we can't get Justin a win. I was just talking to him about it. That was almost 2 months ago, John. So does it get in the heads of the offensive players? Do they start pressing a little, knowing we have to score for this guy?
Absolutely. It is so frustrating for them because that's the last thing they want to be thinking about. They're getting asked questions as it accumulates. When it gets to an exaggerated level, everybody can't help but think about it.
Yeah.
And so position players or closers come in and blow your 4th win in a row, and they feel awful. And next thing you know, they're thinking about it when they go into the game. That's not what you're supposed to do, but it's human nature. And I think that's just the byproduct of our game. Some things are justifiable, some are not. Some analytic statistics are great, some are not. And I think that's just the world that they live in now. They're being judged on things that are not fair, and some are fair. You just have to filter it out. And Greg Maddux taught me something indirectly, and he said, look, do what you can do to be the best. If you take the sting out of their bats, if you give up 2 runs or less, you've done your job. He never hyper-focused on the end result, but that's just that's just kind of, you
Yeah.
got to get to a level to be able to do that because it's tough.
Yeah, for sure. It's rivalry weekend coming up around baseball, the inaugural one in Major League Baseball. The big one for me is the Mets going to the Bronx because Juan Soto is heading back to the Bronx where he said it'll be 50,000 against one. He's expecting all of the boos. How do you think this return for Juan Soto goes in the
I think it's going to be I think he's going to be probably accurate because of where he went. I still think it would have been, if he'd have been in the National League and he came back, it'd be halfway maybe booze. But I think it'll be pretty intense because, look, New York's New York. It's the mecca of attention, and when you go to the Little Brothers, as they're known for the longest time, it's not going to receive well. Even though there may be some hidden Mets fans in there trying to cheer, I think he's right, and he's probably preparing himself for that and getting a little motivated, and it'll be fun. It'll be fun to watch.
This probably need one. He's not having a bad year. He's just not having a Juan Soto type year. But this is probably exactly what he needs to get back going. I wouldn't doubt for a second if he's shuffling harder than we've seen him shuffle all year long, and he hits a couple homers there in the Bronx.
Yeah, it might be the medicine that the Mets need to just get him into that Juan Soto groove. I mean,
Yeah,
you're right, not having a bad year, but I still think at the end of the year he's going to have his numbers because he's that good of a player.
yeah. Last one for you, John, and more of a pertinent, relevant topic around the game of baseball. Pete Rose, taken off of the ineligible list. He was given a lifetime ban. He's dead, so it makes sense to take him off of that list. But my question for you is the big one that everyone's asking. When it comes to getting in the Hall of Fame, and in case anyone listening doesn't know, he wasn't put in the Hall of Fame. He was just taken off the ineligible list so he could possibly be voted into the Hall of Fame one day. That day is not right now. In your opinion, John, there's a lot that goes along with him, right? There's the gambling, and then there's some unspeakable things that happened off the field as well. But the Hall of Fame is a museum for the greatest baseball players of all time. What are your thoughts? Should Pete Rose get into the Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I've always felt this was the route it was going to take. And, whenever you have these kind of conversations, you're always going to be like a politician, have half of them people just think you're crazy and
For
the other
sure.
half saying right on. I've always felt that Pete Rose and what he did on the field and what he did as a player, there was nothing tainted about his performance.
Yep.
Nothing. There was no advantages he was given. There was nothing that you could say could take away from his statistical categories. The unfortunate scenario as a manager, he broke the number one rule you can't break. So I understand why that didn't allow him to get in the
Yeah.
Hall of Fame. I happen to agree with this decision. It'll still come down to the Veterans Committee. He will undoubtedly, based on statistics and his performance, is a Hall of Fame player. And I know the argument's going to be conflated with other things. The Hall of Fame and what it was written and how it was entitled to get into the Hall of Fame, that was stripped a long time ago
Yeah.
when you talk about the integrity and the off the field things, because that's just not the case anymore, or maybe whenever that started to change. So it's not about being a saint, but at the same time, the decisions that are made have its consequences,
Yeah.
and this was one that had its consequences while he was alive. And maybe his family and will get to enjoy if he gets inducted into the Hall of Fame, and will forever be known as one of the greatest all-time hits leader of all time. There are going to be people that are going to try to draw parallels to the hypocrisy of baseball and this and that, and they're going to have their opinions, and they're entitled to it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to on the field, I don't know anything as a player that he was connected to while he was a player.
Yeah.
But you can draw all the suspicions you want, and the evidence is the evidence of which he did and was found guilty of, and paid that penalty while he was alive.
John, always a pleasure, my friend. A lot of fun talking to you every week. Really appreciate it. And we'll do it again next week.
Look forward to it. You
All
got
right.
it.
See you, John. All right, just wanted to thank John Smoltz again for joining us here as he does every week on Flippin' Bats, which always means a ton. That last conversation about Pete Rose is an interesting one, very interesting one, and I do want to talk about it a bit further. I'm going to say something about Pete Rose, and many of you are probably going to disagree with me. First off, it was logical to take him off of the ineligible list. It was a lifetime ban. He's dead. It was a lifetime ban and his life is over. So he's no longer on that permanently ineligible list. So I agree with Commissioner Manfred on this move. Now the question becomes, does he get voted into the Hall of Fame? Because as I mentioned, he's not in the Hall of Fame. This decision doesn't mean he's in the Hall of Fame. It just means the possibility of him getting into the Hall of Fame is now there when it once wasn't. I've said this time and time again. The Hall of Fame is a museum that houses the greatest baseball players of all time, not the greatest people of all time. And we've had that conversation before about Kurt Schilling, and then there's a bunch of the steroid guys, and not that that makes them necessarily bad people, it just changes the integrity of the game. But the baseball museum is meant to house the greatest baseball players, not the greatest people. Now, as we currently sit, the MLB Hall of Fame does not include the all-time hits leader, Pete Rose, the all-time home run leader, Barry Bonds, the all-time leader in Cy Young Awards, Roger Clemens, with 7. But what makes this situation even more interesting is that when it comes to Pete Rose, there is no doubt the player that he was on the field. When it comes to steroids, sometimes there is a bit of a doubt. Would they have put up these numbers? Would they have had these numbers over this long of a career? Would the power numbers have been this high? There is always a smidge of doubt when it comes to steroids. There's not that smidge of doubt when it comes to the baseball player that Pete Rose was. But when it comes to this specific case, it's too much for me. I don't think you enshrine him in Cooperstown. I don't think you immortalize Pete Rose with a plaque because he's not someone to immortalize. We're not just talking gambling here. We're not just talking a player jeopardizing the integrity of the game. We are talking unspeakable things, things that I will not speak on. But if you aren't aware of what I'm speaking of, just Google Pete Rose 14-year-old girl. Unspeakable things. So we're talking not just the integrity of the game, not just gambling on the game. We're talking other things as well that to me don't allow you to give him a plaque in Cooperstown. Now, what I will say is put him in the museum. If I go to the Hall of Fame museum, I should absolutely see him there. I should see the all-time hits leader. I should see the player he was. I can acknowledge Charlie Hustle as an all-time player and someone that growing up you are pointed to saying, play the game like that. Play the game like Pete Rose. And that is true. That still remains true. Nobody played the game harder, and that is how you should model your game after. Put him in the museum. Allow me to go there and see everything about him. Put a bat in there. Put all of his stats in there. But when it comes to giving him a plaque in Cooperstown, immortalizing him, for me, it's too much. And I think many people are going to disagree with that. I think people want him in. I think you put him in the museum in some ways, but I don't think you immortalize him with the plaque. And again, people might disagree. I know people do disagree, but that's just my stance. And maybe it's a bit hypocritical because I've always said the Hall of Fame is a museum with the greatest baseball players, not the greatest people. For me, this one's a little bit different. It's a little bit different of a situation, but it is a very relevant topic at this point because he was just removed from the permanently ineligible list, along with all the players from the 1919 Black Sox team with that scandal, which the big one there is Shoeless Joe Jackson. So a couple of big names will be potentially voted on for, not potentially voted on, they will be voted on as to whether they should get into the Hall of Fame or not. When it comes to these guys, there's a committee that has to decide whether to put them on the ballot, and that committee doesn't meet until December of 2027. So we're still a couple of years away from this potentially happening. But Shoeless Joe Jackson, Pete Rose will be massive conversations. And it's certainly an interesting one, to say the least. But really appreciate John Smoltz for talking about it, for joining as he does every single week. Really appreciate you all for joining and listening every single week, every single episode as well. Please make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, hit that subscribe button. And you can watch every single episode as well on our YouTube channel, Flippin' Bats Pod there. Please watch, subscribe, like the video, comment. I always hop in the comments and talk back to all you guys and have a fun conversation. And I feel like today might be a big one as well. I know a lot of you are probably going to disagree, and that's okay. I understand. I understand your side of the conversation wholeheartedly. It's just a good conversation. I'd love to have it with you guys in the comments. So check out our YouTube channel. We're on all social media as well, at Flippin' Bats Pod, everywhere you could possibly find on social media. So thank you all. Thank you to John Smoltz. We will be back soon. It is rivalry weekend around Major League Baseball, the first inaugural rivalry weekend. We know about the Mets heading back to the Bronx, the Freeway Series with the Dodgers and the Angels. It's all over the place. It's great. So I love it. Enjoy the weekend. We'll be back soon with another episode of Flippin' Bats. But until next time, my friends, remember, find your bat and flip it. Peace.